Hello there, welcome back. Welcome back to the Technology Innovation Hub. It's going to be another session from DevOps portal. I think in the last session we configured the compose Docker image and we executed and got the container and we accessed that from the browser. I think you understood what's happening and we discussed the concepts as well. Right? And now in our DevOps, under the DevOps sessions, we have done CI/CD infrastructure building, and you know what the basic pipeline is, right? And the Docker concepts, right? So now the next thing will be actually heading for the Kubernetes, right? Because as I mentioned earlier in DevOps, right, Kubernetes platform is playing a major role, right? I mean, it's like without Kubernetes, the platform is, I mean, don't be a success like, right? Because you know it's the number one auto scaling, number one highly scalable platform. I mean, a container orchestration platform, Kubernetes, right? So that's why we are now trying to start with that. But as beginners now, because this series is for beginners, still I haven't published any mid to advanced area for on the DevOps sessions. So this is all about beginner sessions. So as a beginner, you won't be able to right away install a Kubernetes cluster and start working on it, right? But there is a place to start as a beginner with Kubernetes, right? So that is known as the Minikube, right? Minikube. Minikube is a single node cluster. You know, Kubernetes, even though we just say Kubernetes, okay, it's a cluster, right? It's a cluster. I mean, consists of master node and worker nodes, right? So minimum 2 worker nodes are required, right? With one master node. And for resiliency, high availability, we can have multi-master. And depending on the load, we can increase the number of worker nodes as well, right? So it's a cluster. But when it comes to Minikube, it's going to be a cluster, true, but it's a single node cluster. Minikube is a single node cluster, or we say one node cluster, right? So, but for learning environment, it is okay to start, right? For production, it is not suitable. But for learning, right? I mean, you can simulate the basics, right? For example, the pod behavior, you can do a deployment, you can see the CNI network, right? And pod network, CIDRs, and you can check most of those things, how the resources, even the services, so we can create those things, right? And it has this dashboard as a Minikube dashboard to graphically see what's happening inside the cluster, right? All right, so therefore, let's start with that rather than right away jump into the Kubernetes multi-node production level cluster. So once you get to know the basics with this, gradually we will start with the Kubernetes cluster, which is going for production level. All right. So with that introduction, let's start. Let me share the screen, right? All right, so right away, the first thing what you need to do, so these all hands-on sessions, so what you need to do, we need to install our Minikube cluster. So that's the very first thing. I mean, we need to start working in that. Because I'm not going to explain architecture components within the Minikube cluster at this stage. Let's do some hands-on and get to know what it is, right? And how the behavior is going to be practically. After that, let's try to get an idea about the architectural component. Of course, actually, architecture should be deep dive with the Kubernetes cluster, not with the Minikube cluster, right? So to get the hands-on experience only, we are dealing with Minikube, okay? Right. Yeah, so this is the very first thing. Now to start Minikube. So how do you start with Minikube? So I have given the guide, right? Given the guide means the location, the official Kubernetes, they are guiding you, they are giving you. The documentation is there, right? I'll include this link in the guide that I am providing on the GitHub, right? So this is the way to start, right? So they are telling Minikube it's a local Kubernetes, you can see. Local Kubernetes focusing making it easy to learn and develop for Kubernetes. That's true. All you need to need is Docker for similar compatibility. All you need is a Docker. Or similarly compatible container or a virtual machine environment. And Kubernetes is a single command. Okay, that's true. Because it's like now in Minikube, we can start in different environments, and it supports several drivers as well, right? Now in Windows, we can do this, right? We can just go to Windows, and in Windows, you have Docker Desktop. Using Docker Desktop also you can, right? You can handle Minikube, and even without Docker Desktop, by using the direct VMware driver, I think the VM driver, you can right away in the command line, you can go ahead and do the Minikube start using the VM drive without Docker also. That is also possible, right? And the other thing is, if you want, you can use PowerShell, right? You can use PowerShell as well, right? So within PowerShell, you can use a Windows package management tool like Chocolates, right? So with Chocolates, very easily you will be able to install, right? So that is all. But all these are Windows background. No. But in our practical, we are not going to go with the Windows level, right? So we are going on Linux, right? Because from the beginning, very first beginning, I need you to be closer to the production environment, right? Because in production, we don't see the Windows clusters are running Kubernetes on Kubernetes, right? So Kubernetes is not running on Windows-based system. It is either Linux environment, right? Or I mean, we have other operating systems, UX, AIX, and Solaris, and those stuff, right? So anyway, it's totally based on Linux, right? Right. So in production, so that is what we need to start with Linux. So when you start with Linux, so that is what yeah, you can see there are minimum requirements. For example, you can just try out Minikube start as they are telling. You can just type Minikube start and say, I'll show you what's going to happen once you type Minikube start, right? And the requirements are there. What they are telling is you can see 2 CPUs or more. So if you have 2 cores, that is fine. I'll show you how to do that. 2 GB memory, that's okay, right? So installation, they under the guide, they have given how to do it on Mac OS, Windows as well. So we are heading on this part, Linux 64-bit and binary download. We are going to download, right? Okay, so let me show you, right? Let me show you how this can be done. Right, so this guidance is given on a total empty machine, right? So you have to assume that you have only the operating system, right? In a bare environment, there is nothing, even no Docker is there, because I need you to, I want to demonstrate from the scratch, right? Otherwise, because premeditated or configured environments might not reflect the exact flow of the installation, right? So as a beginner, when you're doing, you are doing from this scratch. So that's why I'm also explaining from this scratch, right? Okay, so let's think in this way, right? So this is the location for the guide. So you are going there, and you are right after you are typing Minikube start, right? So this is what going to happen. So driver Docker is optional, right? So if you want, you can try it out. But by default, in Linux environment, it looks for the Docker driver. That's true, right? Because the driver can be VMware, can be Docker, right? We have other drivers as well to drive the Minikube platform, right? So when you type this one, you get this. The initial message will be this. Of course, no doubt, because there is no Minikube installed, right? So you say command not found, then you run the curl command, right? And you pull Minikube, right? The executable, right? So that command is given in this, right? You can just copy it, right? And yeah, taken from the official Google Minikube and releases latest Minikube 64-bit, right? Yeah, so you can just copy that one right away, and you can see the output is here. I have given the output, right? Yeah, you can see the command is running, and yeah, after that, so no need to go sudo because I am already in root, right? So you need to do it under root, right? So it will download this 64-bit package, and then you have to say install Minikube, right? This one, it is downloaded already. It's getting downloaded for this one, right? Yeah, so this the package, it is downloaded, and the location you have to give. So it will get installed here. Here, in a sense, that is for the executable, it is doing that, right? Because we need to access the Minikube command. We can go into this place because I have done the installation, and then we can go in and check that location, right? So install Minikube, right? So I think the command is here and here. Yeah, so that is the way it goes. Okay, fine. So it works fine, right? So there is, remember, there are no yum install, right? So right away is going to install, right? So install Minikube, fine. So that's the command, and once it's done, you can see this is also going to be, it will try to, then after that, the installation is done, right? Okay, then, yeah, sudo install Minikube, that's okay. I think I have cut that output, but that's fine. You can try this out. This command name says install, that's okay. Then after the installation is done, right? What we can do, try to start. Minikube start. So that's what the document says, no, right? The document says it's just a matter of time, typing Minikube start, right? So you try it, right? See what happens, right? So Minikube start. So that's the next command. Right? When you try, it's going to happen. It will say unable to deploy driver here. What is considered? There's no deploy driver, no VM, no Docker, nothing. So it doesn't have the driver. So that is why I told you this is from the scratch. I'm doing from the very first beginning. So this machine, Linux environment doesn't have Docker. So in Linux, it looks for Docker, no, so it doesn't have Docker. So the next step is you need to install Docker, right? I mean, I'll format this particular guide, then I'll give you a proper guide, then upload it to a GitHub repo under DevOps. So, and you can follow it up, but the next step is you need to install Docker. You know how to install Docker. I put that link as well because in the CI/CD pipeline configuration, we install Docker. You can follow the same steps and get Docker installed, right? So that is that. Then once the Docker installed, you can check the status of the Docker. You can start Docker and the status is active, right? You can see now I have checked it. So it is active. Right, then you again try to do the Minikube start because it gave error. Now it said no driver, right? So and we now again trying to do the start Minikube start again trying. Right now what it says? Now it says automatically selected Docker driver. You can see that's by default is selected. Now Docker is available for him. So now it's telling exiting. Yeah. Now it says CPU count is not filled. So that's the next message they are telling because you may remember the guide itself initially mentioned the prerequisites. You need 2 CPUs, right? So if you can, in the virtual machine, if you can give 2 cores, right? 2 cores, that will take, right? So otherwise it will fail like this, asking 2 CPUs or greater than, right? So now it says available 1 because I just want to show you this error because by default, normally we don't enable multiple CPUs in VM, right? VM environment. So that's the default, right? If you want, you can increase. So what you can do, very simple, you go here, right? Let me show you, but remember to increase the CPU, you need to make sure the VM is down, right? So I will get a guest service which is shut down already. Now under saved, if it is saved, even you won't be able to change the settings, right? So if you go to settings, under system, the processor it is locked. You can't change it, right? That is because it is been, even though shut down, it is not shut down, it is saved. I have saved the image, right? But when it's power off, right? Now this is what I'm using. It is running, but this is power off. When it's power off, what you can do, you can go to system and very simply go to processors and you can increase. Take it to here. By default, it is 1. You can see it is 1. Just click here. It will make it 2, 4, depending on number of cores you have, number of CPUs you have in your particular system. You can increase, but 2 is enough, more than enough, no problem. Just make it 2 and click OK. I'm canceling this one because I have already made it 2. So you can see in my environment, if I go to settings, so I have made it 2 here, system, processor. See, I have 2 already, right? Okay, so that is where I am running at the moment, my VM. So make sure it is 2, increase it to 2. So then after that, again, try to start. Now we are attempting Minikube again and again, right? To start it, right? I'm just covering you the errors, right? Most of the errors I'm going to cover so that you will find it easy and you will learn the things how it's going to, how you're going to cover the errors, right? And Minikube start. So now what's going to, one says, now what is telling? Exiting due to the Docker driver should not be run a root privileges. Okay, so what I am doing, under root, I am trying to run Minikube. So that doesn't work. It is not allowed, right? So if you want to run Minikube, you need to use a non-root privilege. I mean root privilege, but non-root user. You need to have the admin rights, but non-root user. So then what we can do? Okay, you may remember in our Docker configuration guide, we are adding a Docker user. So go to that and run the commands docker add user add docker, right? Not docker add, user add docker, right? This is docker underscore user I'm adding and make him add into the sudo file and make him passwordless authentication and add this one to the profile. That's fine. Then you can switch into that user. You can see it is being switched, right? Now I am under that user. So now again, after switching to that user, I am trying to say Minikube start. You can see. So now let's see what's happening. Now we have covered certain errors now. Now it says unable to pick a default driver. Yeah, what is say here is what is considered, right? It's telling still it can't get the Docker driver, default driver, no healthy Docker version and something blah blah blah. We can see that. So finally, the resolution is you need to add your Docker user to Docker group. That's the requirement here. Your previously created Docker user, you need to add it to the Docker group. Otherwise, it cannot detect the driver properly, right? So then what you can do, exit from Docker user, right? Exit from and go back to root again, and you say user add the user to our Docker user to Docker group -ag to Docker group, right? Now again switch back to Docker, right? Then after that, try Minikube start, right? So now here Minikube start command is running. So now most of the errors are covered actually. Okay, now it's going. And Docker is nearly out of space. Okay, that is my problem, right? In my machine, there was a space issue, right? But you won't get this one. So there was a space issue. It says, I mean, it doesn't block it, but it gives me a warning because my root, the particular volume is 97% free, 97% used, right? Only 3% free, right? So therefore, it's telling your deployments might fail because, of course, you need for deployment, you need space, right? So with that warning, it continues anyway. So it's continuing, and content is having trouble accessing to pull new external images. You may need to configure likewise and preparing Kubernetes, or likewise is continuing. What is it? Having yeah, that is because of the that's fine. That's okay. That's a space issue due to that one. This content is having trouble accessing HTTP K8IO. To pull a new external image, you may need to configure preparing. That's okay. You can ignore that. Right? Yeah, that's fine. So then generating certificates and all, and role RBAC role and issues, and configuring everything is going and fine. Done. Enabling add-ons and okay. Kube control not found. Yeah, that doesn't have kube control. Finally, it is done. Done installing. Kubernetes Minikube is installed. So kubelet, I mean, not kube scuttle, right? kubectl, not kubelet. Kubelet is a different component. We are running under node level, worker node level. This is the kubectl or kubectl. We are doing kubectl, right? Which is admin command, I mean, to schedule jobs and all. Let's see how the behavior of kubectl later, right? So it is not there. That's true because this is Minikube. We are installing. We haven't installed kubectl yet, right? So anyway, I have rectified the space issue. So I have dropped it down to 81%. So after dropping it down, so what I did, I just tested. I stopped the Minikube using Minikube stop and it started. So stopping, and then after that I started it, right? Then without any issue, now it's going, right? Starting control plane and restarting existence. It's not going to fetch the image again. The Minikube one earlier it fetched, right? You can see here it is around 492 MB, so it is fetching that for the first time. It is pulling that image, right? So that's okay, but after that it is using the local image, right? That's fine, right? So if you want to see how it's pulling again, you need to clean it off. Minikube erase, right? Minikube delete. I think Minikube, yeah, we'll see those commands, right? Minikube remove command is there. That's fine. So verify the Minikube components, and yeah, verify the Minikube component, kubectl does the same thing. So after that, there is no space warning, so it works fine, right? So now you can see the kubectl. I mean, without having a kubectl command, we won't be able to do any, we won't get to fetch any information from the cluster, right? So that's why I just tested kubectl. So it said kubectl is not there, right? So then when I try the command, it's true, there's no kubectl. But Minikube, there's a way to run kubectl, right? As soon as you install Minikube, you have this option. You can say Minikube kubectl. That option is available to you, right? So then it fetches that tool and get it installed. That is not real kubectl. That is a tiny Minikube kubectl. Right? So I am just typing get PO. I want to see the ports. PO means port, right? And so you can see when you type it for the very first time, it's getting fetching that particular tool and getting installed, right? Then after that, only the output comes, no resources found in the default namespace. That is because I don't have any ports, right? Port is a resource in the cluster environment, either Minikube or Kubernetes cluster environment. We will learn those things later. So this is just the command I want to type. And after that, Minikube kubectl get n node, that's to see the node, right? So node, n node. We have a single node cluster. So this is my node, right? By default, this gives the Minikube name and it says ready, right? And control plane, yeah, we'll learn those in control plane. I mean, those details. That is in the normally in a Kubernetes environment, when the worker nodes and master nodes are there are certain components run in the master node. There are certain components which is run on the worker nodes, right? So control plane, scheduler, we have etcd, right? Configuration information, status information, those things are in the master node. But here we can't differentiate both, no, because we have only single node, right? It's a one node cluster Minikube. So that's why it says even your worker node and the master node both are in the same. So therefore, it says the role is control plane. So that, I mean, it acts as a master as well, right? So and it acts as a worker node as well because we have only one node, right? Okay, so if you want to see further detail, you can type Minikube status. So Minikube status command will tell you control plane is running, host running, kubelet is running, API server is running. Okay. Right, so we are done with the installation, right? So I mean, let's break it here. With the next session, I'll explain the rest of the little bit of configuration behind the Minikube, and we'll try out few commands in the next session, right? Hope you enjoyed it and try to get Minikube up, and I'll meet you soon again. If you like the video, you can put a subscribe. Okay, have a nice day. Right, bye bye.